And welcome to Conversations. I'm Andre Whitehead, and this is our business, health, and community news show where we discuss matters of business, community news, sports, health, entertainment. It's a full-featured TV magazine, if you will. We thank you for your support. Today we present the entire press conference that was held earlier this week with Dr. Mark Whitaker, member of Portsmouth City Council. Now, this case, many of you are aware of, ended with Dr. Whitaker being sentenced to $7,500. Initially, there were 20 indictments. 17 of them were thrown out. So that was the sentencing that happened earlier this week. Now, the beauty of what we do at Whitehead Media Ventures is to bring you features like this in their entirety, where you'll get to hear from Dr. Mark Whitaker himself as I, along with my fellow colleagues, posed different questions to him. Then there was a select few of us that had a chance to stand with his attorney right outside of the courthouse in Portsmouth, Virginia. So once again, we want to thank everyone for tuning in. By the way, I would be remiss if I did not invite you to tune into our radio show. We do a radio show that's listened to all throughout the country at WLNI.com. Zach, put that on the screen for me. Okay, so tune into the radio show every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock a.m. at WLNI.com, no matter where you are. We'll have extended coverage of this case of Dr. Mark Whitaker. But at this time, without any further ado, we take you to the press conference earlier this week with Portsmouth City Councilman Mark Whitaker right after he was sentenced. Stay tuned.
First of all, I just want to say that we are thankful for the strength to go through this process, and that we are more committed than ever to continue to lift our voice and speak on issues of social and economic justice. As you know, the decision today, I feel honored. Just want to let you know I feel honored to stand in a long line of those within my tradition who have been wrongfully convicted because of speaking truth to power and for raising issues about our community that are not supposed to be raised. I stand here honored to be in a tradition of those who have been wrongfully convicted for speaking to the issues of our community and for standing on the truth. And so in no regard am I deterred from continuing to do what I'm doing because through all of this I feel a sense of righteousness, and in that sense I have stood on the truth. This whole situation comes out of a context of trying to rid our Cavalier Minor community of a drug-infested, prostitution-ridden facility. We use funds within our credit union to properly do it, and we did nothing wrong. And when we try to take ownership of our communities economically, when we speak to issues that will advance, there are always those who will seek to try to deter us. And so I want you to make sure that I'm clear on letting you know that what we have done, we will continue to do, and that is stand for that which is right. This is all about trying to silence my voice. My voice will not be silenced. I am not intimidated, as I've told you from counsel. I am not intimidated by white supremacy, nor by black inferiority. And so what you have seen happen today is no accident. This was a well-orchestrated, well-coordinated, malicious and vicious prosecution that was handled by a sheriff who has already been found on record to submitting false reports to the state. He did that in this case with the assistance of our Commonwealth Attorney, Stephanie Morales, for political purposes, all in a vein to try to silence my voice. It was a vicious attack against me, against my family, and against our church. But as you can see, we're still standing and we're still together. I'm proud to stand in a tradition of those who have been convicted wrongfully for speaking the truth. I have nothing to be ashamed about, and I will continue to do that because my humanity transcends anything that this court or any others can do. And my humanity will always transcend any type of deed or ill will that anyone will ever have, because I am not defined by others. I'm defined by something much more greater. And so therefore we continue to stand.
But you have to be disappointed in the judge's ruling.
I'm not disappointed at all. I think what you don't understand is that in my tradition, it is expected that when you speak like I speak, you must expect for suffering to occur and for the opposition to come. I expected this to happen. However, as we can see, no longer is there any sanctity for family or church. And that's the type of society we're living in today, that people are more concerned about their self-interest. There was no forgery in this case. There were no victims in this case. What we did was improve our community by taking blight out of it, by using funds that were properly available for us to use.
Coming up.
The question you should be asking is, how is it that a sheriff gets involved in investigating a church? I don't see a sheriff investigating when other elected officials have been involved in double dipping. Mayor Rowe was double dipping. I didn't see the sheriff investigate him. I haven't seen the sheriff investigate Steve Heretic for these settled claims issues. How is it that I get pinpointed and identified for investigation? I don't see the sheriff investigating the issues of what has happened in our community with elected officials being tied to contracts. I don't see him I didn't see Sheriff Watson, and let me make it clear, I'm talking about Sheriff Watson and his regime. And so I'm not a bit disappointed. Actually, I feel more empowered and encouraged because it lets me know if the Commonwealth Attorney, Stephanie Morales, and the sheriff, if you look at the amount of money they put into prosecuting me, over now $10,000 to help clear property. None of this, you had the Department of Treasury at their disposal. The Department of Treasury has access to all of our accounts. There's no mention of me profiting from any of this, but yet those persons who I just named, they have profited individually, and I do not see those persons being investigated. I have not seen any investigation of the sheriff by the Commonwealth over the issue of Pamela Riddick. Okay? And we know that documents were falsified.
And stay tuned. Coming up later in the broadcast, you'll hear from Mark Whitaker's attorney, John Babineau.
Let's do a reality check. Let's do furniture. Let's do mattresses. Let's do it different. And let's do it at the lowest price period and mean it. Schul's guaranteed lowest price. That's not just talk. Those aren't just words. They're stop you in your tracks, worry-proof your wallet, let's buy with confidence, knowing you're getting the absolute, no games, no gimmicks, lowest price. Now that's how Schul's does a low price guarantee.
Soldiers in the Army National Guard live up to a set of time-honored principles.
I will always place the mission first.
They stand ready to respond to any crisis.
I will never accept defeat.
They serve in their communities as citizens and as soldiers.
I will never quit.
They train part-time to be ready to serve at all times.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
Learn more at NationalGuard.com.
Yes, ma'am. We can do that. No, we're going to bring the cameras to you. We take care of all production and all editing. Yes, ma'am. That's not a problem. We'll even give you the file. Yes, ma'am. We can have you on this weekend. Thank you. We'll do it. We appreciate your business. You call me as well. We want to tell your story. And don't miss the show. Every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock a.m. in all of Hampton Roads on WGNT and the CW27.
The question you should be asking is, how is it that a sheriff gets involved in investigating a church? I don't see a sheriff investigating when other elected officials have been involved in double dipping. Mayor Rowe was double dipping. I didn't see the sheriff investigate him. I haven't seen the sheriff investigate Steve Heretic for these settled claims issues. How is it that I get pinpointed and identified for investigation? I don't see the sheriff investigating the issues of what has happened in our community with elected officials being tied to contracts. I don't see him. I didn't see Sheriff Watson, and let me make it clear, I'm talking about Sheriff Watson and his regime. And so I'm not a bit disappointed. Actually, I feel more empowered and encouraged because it lets me know if the Commonwealth Attorney, Stephanie Morales, and the sheriff, if you look at the amount of money they put into prosecuting me, over now $10,000 to help clear property, none of this, you had the Department of Treasury at their disposal. The Department of Treasury has access to all of our accounts. There's no mention of me profiting from any of this, but yet those persons who I just named, they have profited individually, and I do not see those persons being investigated. I have not seen any investigation of the sheriff by the Commonwealth over the issue of Pamela Riddick. Okay? And we know that documents were falsified. Why is it that there's been no prosecution there? So I'm not disappointed at all. It just lets me know that I must have been speaking something, and I must be a threat. And that's what our history shows. Whenever black men like myself stand out like we do, we become a threat. And this is not unusual if we know our history, that the criminal process is used to silence our voice. And once again, we see from our past history a sheriff attacking a black church and a black elected official.
Councilman,
our history is full of that.
Councilman,
and so no, I do not feel dishonored at all.
Councilman, the jury was split, African American and white. They decided unanimously that indeed you were guilty of fraud and forgery. What do you say about the jury's verdict? All the other issues notwithstanding, they said you were guilty. I would
suggest that when you raise the fact that you had a white jury, black jury split, I think you need to go and read some of the social literature as it relates to the dynamics of what happens on juries. And
but African Americans found you guilty too.
Well, does that say that then all whites would find you guilty?
No, but you're saying that it was race.
No, that's not what I said. You brought up race. I did not bring up race.
But you talked about white supremacy.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about the jury in that instance. I was talking about the context out of which this whole investigation began. The jury, once again, let me finish. the behaviors and reactions of jurors, the issue you're talking about, I would advise you to go and read some social literature on the dynamics of juries. Just because you have blacks on a jury, are you suggesting that means that all blacks will support? Because
No,
I can point out to you, we have Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. We have Dr. Ben Carson in Hood. I would dare say that they do not represent the interests of our community. And so your issue going to the racial makeup of the jury, that doesn't get to the mindset of the jurors.
No, I'm just
and
trying
that's,
to
that's
answer
what's important.
this jury, thoughtfully, according to the judge, found you guilty of fraud and forgery. They said you were guilty regardless of how the investigation began.
Well, once again, as
Bill
I
Watson
said,
must have been onto something.
Well, once again, and that's what you would want to conclude. But what I'm saying is, once again, I stand in a long line of those who have been wrongfully convicted. And you told me yourself, Andy, that you didn't see any evidence that would find me guilty. You told me that when we talked the last time. You said you sat through and you don't see any evidence. And so if you had been on the jury, you would have been a not guilty vote. And we would have had a hung jury. Now, also, comment on. I want you to comment on this. I also pointed out to you, Andy, and I noticed the media hasn't picked this up, that the sheriff created a Social Security number on the identity theft fraud charge. The sheriff created a Social Security number that was not there to say I committed identity theft. I have yet to hear you report on the fact that the numbers on the document was not a Social Security number, and they created a Social Security number, which the judge ended up throwing out. But I didn't hear that. Also, they used my sister in this case, knowing that there was no issue with her, but they held it out there. Also, I think you should ask, why is it that the Commonwealth never called the Department of Treasury? Why wasn't the Department of Treasury called as a witness in all of this investigation? It was purely used to give the appearance of legitimacy. And so I think those are the issues that you should address. And if we're reporting objectively, I think that there should be a critical assessment of this whole process and what the sheriff did in falsifying information to the special grand jury to get me indicted. And so we're here at this stage because, once again, this was a highly coordinated, it was a highly vicious and malicious prosecution to try to silence. And you heard the Commonwealth speak of all of this concerted action, but yet I'm the only one that they identified which should speak to the truth, that this whole thing was about not trying to get justice, but trying to remove my voice, which they will not be successful. I continue to keep pressing on.
Yes. Coming up next.
Yes, let me
moving forward, how will you proceed with an appeal? What happens?
Well, the attorneys will handle all of that.
You also mentioned speaking out. Your voice won't be silenced.
Right.
How will you speak out now, being removed from City Council?
Well, I have not been removed from City Council.
But you're automatically suspended according to law.
Well, suspended is not removal. Okay, so I just want to let you know I have not been removed from City Council.
What do you plan to do about your suspension?
I plan on living like I always live.
Will you be at the next council meeting?
I most certainly will. Unless I'm told by my lawyers otherwise.
Will you be sitting in your council seat? Will you be
I will continue to serve in my capacity as long as it is legal for me to do so. And at this time, I'm continuing to move forward. But greater than that, the issue that you all are concerned about is my counsel position, which is what this is all about. It's not about any type of victim. It's about getting me off of counsel. I just want to let you know there are greater things than me being a counsel person. I want to be a great husband, a great father, a great son, a great pastor, a great leader. The counsel does not make my humanity.
Stay tuned. We'll have more as we also interviewed Mark Whitaker's attorney, John Babineau. Stay tuned.
Welcome home. Time goes by, that's for sure, that no one can deny. And we've been apart, so welcome home. Here I am. I was lost, but I'm found, and I turn around. So you're welcome home. Welcome home.
Hello, Hampton Roads. It's always exciting to join you for Conversations, our television show, and we hope that you enjoy what we bring to the marketplace. If there's something that we can do to help you out, make sure that you contact us and tell a friend about Conversations that airs every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock a.m. here at WGNT CW27. Thank you.
We the people. We are innovators, dreamers, leaders. Yeah, we feel pain. We get tired, but it won't stop us. God's call is our pursuit, and we will champion His name.
If you're battling addiction, it's not easy to ask for help. It's hard to admit you really need it. Call and end addiction. Call and connect with representatives from a treatment center or rehab facility. Some insurance plans help pay for the cost of treatment. Be sure to check your policy or call your agent to see if you're covered. The first step to ending addiction starts with one private and no obligation call. There are things you still need to do. The first thing is to call and end addiction.
1-800-536-0439.
Yes, let me.
Moving forward, how will you proceed with an appeal? What happens
Well,
next?
the attorneys will handle all of that.
You also mentioned speaking out. Your voice won't be silenced.
Right.
How will you speak out now, being removed from City Council?
Well, I have not been removed from City Council.
But you're automatically suspended according to law.
Well, suspended is not removal.
I know.
Okay, so I just want to let you know I have not been removed from City Council.
What do you plan to do about your suspension?
I plan on living like I always live.
Will you be at the next council meeting?
I most certainly will.
Will you
unless I'm told by my lawyers otherwise.
Will you be sitting in your council seat? Will you be
I will
action?
continue to serve in my capacity as long as it is legal for me to do so. And at this time, I'm continuing to move forward. But greater than that, the issue that you all are concerned about is my counsel position, which is what this is all about. It's not about any type of victim. It's about getting me off of counsel. I just want to let you know there are greater things than me being a counsel person. I want to be a great husband, a great father, a great son, a great pastor, a great leader. The counsel does not make my humanity. And so your concern is about counsel. Counsel will take care of itself, and my re-election will take care of itself. So I just want to let you know that I'm going to continue to move forward, that I am in no way disheartened by what has happened. Matter of fact, I feel more empowered because I must have been a major threat for this type of action to be taken against me. For them to spend almost over $250,000 in prosecuting me, it must suggest that I must be a threat to what's happening within this city.
But you're a convicted felon. You are not able to run for public office by law, and by law you are suspended, even pending your appeal.
Once again,
you can't run.
Andy, you're given an interpretation that is not even relevant at this time.
But you're a convicted felon.
Well, there hasn't been any order signed by the judge yet, and so I would just.
Coming up.
Also, let me just suggest, and I know that the interest is about me being in council. That is because I have been the only one on council that has been supporting education, that our teachers be funded. I'm the only one on council that's pressing for minority contracting. I'm the only one on council that has been pushing for diversity on the police and fire departments. And so it is those type of voices they're trying to silence. Also, there's a major economic development project that's going to come through this city, and that's the development of the waterfront. All of this is in an effort to keep critical minds like myself off of council so that business can go on as usual. And so I would hope that you don't get caught up in the emotionalism of this and look at this objectively and see that for the amount of money that was spent in prosecuting me, that this whole thing deals with trying to clear off some debris off of a property in Cavalier Manor that was drug-ridden, had prostitution going on, gangs having meetings, and we said we don't want that in our community, and we used our credit union properly to fund moving the debris off of that property.
You are the best protection she has. Buddy up. I'm Jill Harrington. Please visit HelpSaveTheNextGirl.com and get involved.
I'm Andre Whitehead. Thank you so much for tuning in to this very special edition of Conversations in all of Hampton Roads, and we are wanting to reach out to you. We want to tell your story. If there's anything that we can do to help to get your message out and grow your business, share your nonprofit, spread your ministry, contact us today. Our information is on the screen, and thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Conversations with Andre Whitehead, where we've been telling your story since 1989. Thank you.
Having trouble getting credit? Then give Schul's a minute before you rent it. Schul's will save you money on name brand home furnishings, appliances, and electronics, guaranteed. If you've had credit problems in the past, Schul's can help you get credit today. For over 120 years, Schul's has been helping people reestablish their credit. So take a minute and shop at Schul's. There's no banks or finance companies to deal with. You deal only with the friendly folks at Schul's. Everything for your home today.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Andre Whitehead, and I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Conversations, our business, health, and community news show every Saturday morning, bright and early at 7 o'clock a.m. right here on WGNT and the CW27. At this time, we go back to the full press conference with Dr. Mark Whitaker earlier this week, right after he was sentenced on 3 charges pertaining to fraud and forgery. These are his comments as he continues to take questions from my colleagues and myself from the media.
Let me just suggest, and I know that the interest is about me being in council. That is because I have been the only one on council that has been supporting education, that our teachers be funded. I'm the only one on council that's pressing for minority contracting. I'm the only one on council that has been pushing for diversity on the police and fire departments. And so it is those type of voices they're trying to silence. Also, there's a major economic development project that's going to come through this city, and that's the development of the waterfront. All of this is in an effort to keep critical minds like myself off of council so that business can go on as usual. And so I would hope that you don't get caught up in the emotionalism of this and look at this objectively and see that for the amount of money that was spent in prosecuting me, that this whole thing deals with trying to clear off some debris off of a property in Cavalier Manor that was drug-ridden, had prostitution going on, gangs having meetings, and we said we don't want that in our community, and we used our credit union properly to fund moving the debris off of that property. Now you tell me, how is that being investigated versus the mayor in his capacity as a city manager double dipping, and that has not been investigated, nor has a life that was lost in a jail cell, Miss Pamela Riddick, that has not been prosecuted. Now, you tell me if the scales of justice look like they're balanced.
Yeah,
and so I will continue to do what I'm doing.
What do you have to say to the people who elected you, to the people who are considering your re-election, the citizens of this community?
That for those who are interested in a voice of progress and wanting to see Portsmouth move to higher heights, and one who is willing to stand when others do not, because in the heart of all of this, please realize that I was offered a plea deal. They went from 20 felonies. Now you think about it. They went from 20 felonies to offering me a misdemeanor. I rejected it because I refused to admit to something I know I didn't do. So for people who are willing to look at this and see that I'm willing to stand, speak truth, I'm willing to push and go because I stand on the truth, those voices will be the ones that will continue to hear the interest that I'm supporting. And they will always. I want to thank people. I've been in the mall, in the stores, black, white, Jew, Gentile, Protestant, Catholic, all have been coming up to me, telling me to keep on doing what I'm doing. And I will continue to do that. Thank you all for
as a pastor.
Speak real briefly about your faith, though. What has this process done to your faith? We've seen these kind of events just rock people from the core.
Right.
Talk about your faith.
No, my faith has undergirded everything that I've done. The faith tradition I come out of, the cross is a representation of the cost of discipleship. When you decide to deal with issues of social and economic injustice, you are now addressing power structures. I did not go on council to grin and smile. I did not go there to scratch. I went there to speak on social justice issues, poverty, living wages, educating our children. Those things are budgetary issues, which means funds will have to be diverted from other areas. And so my faith has greatly informed me, and that's why I say I stand in the line of a long tradition, and that's why I say I feel righteous in all of this, because it just confirms to me that I have been on the right side of history, and I have been standing in a tradition that we are called to stand, and that is speak truth to power, not to conform, but to transform. And that's what I will continue to do.
I understand.
And I do that because of my father, Bishop James Whitaker. This is my father, my mother. There's 87 years old.
And I amen everything he said.
And he was
right.
He was one of the few preachers in Portsmouth back in the 60s who was supporting Dr. King when other black preachers and white preachers were silent. My father was on the firing line. And so I have inherited some of his enemies as well as the enemies of the cross. He's still standing. The Lord has kept him, and the Lord will keep our family. Because, as I said, my humanity transcends any goodwill man can do. God takes care of me. And so my conscience is clear. I know that what we have done, we've done the right thing, and I will continue. My church family has been more than supportive, and other churches around the city, and so I will continue to do what I'm doing.
Pastor
thank you for that question.
All right. Pastor Whitaker, what would you like to say about your son and about what he's been through and about the things he said out here today?
He's greater now than ever before because of the sacrifices and the contributions that he has made. He's done it because it's the right thing to do. And I'm so glad that he had not bowed or bent to unrighteousness, injustice, segregation, and wickedness. And we're going to fight and stay on the battlefield as long as God gives us breath.
Amen. Amen. Thank you all.
So, clarification, at what point will you not sit on council and honor the suspension? Will it be from a judge?
After a commercial break, we'll hear from Dr. Mark Whitaker's attorney, John Babineau. Stay tuned. This is Conversations with Andre Whitehead.
Suspended status pending the appeal of his convictions. Is that true or not true?
Well, it's both. And let me explain why. The court speaks through its orders. So what has to be prepared now is a felony sentencing order, which the judge then has to sign, which makes the finding of guilt and the sentence imposed the order of the court. The court speaks through its orders only. The judge is a visiting judge from another jurisdiction, and so the order has to be prepared by the clerk, sent to him wherever he is, and then he will sign it, and it'll be sent back to the court. Once he signs the order, and it's entered on the record in the circuit court, then the conviction is memorialized. So between now and that point, there is no conviction order in place.
What is that at this point, the date? I mean, is that next week? Is that tomorrow?
All right, Hampton Roads, we want to thank you for watching our show, and we want you to tell a friend about Conversations, our business, health, and community news show. Don't miss it every Saturday morning, and we want to hear from you. We want our show to be interactive. We want to correspond with you. Contact us today. Our information is on the screen. We appreciate you more than you'll ever know. And thanks for watching Conversations.
Soldiers in the Army National Guard live up to a set of time-honored principles.
I will always place the mission first.
They stand ready to respond to any crisis.
I will never accept defeat.
They serve in their communities as citizens and as soldiers.
I will never quit.
They train part-time to be ready to serve at all times.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
Learn more at NationalGuard.com.
He has suspended status pending the appeal of his convictions. Is that true or not true?
Well, it's both. And let me explain why. The court speaks through its orders. So what has to be prepared now is a felony sentencing order, which the judge then has to sign, which makes the finding of guilt and the sentence imposed the order of the court. The court speaks through its orders only. The judge is a visiting judge from another jurisdiction, and so the order has to be prepared by the clerk, sent to him wherever he is, and then he will sign it, and it'll be sent back to the court. Once he signs the order, and it's entered on the record in the circuit court, then the conviction is memorialized. So between now and that point, there is no conviction order in place.
What is that at this point, the date? I mean, is that next week? Is that tomorrow?
As soon as the clerk has to prepare the order, has to put it in the mail, send it to the judge has to sign it, put it in the mail, and send it back to the clerk. So that's going to be more than tomorrow. I would say, I would guess, and it's just a guess, probably in the next week to 10 days.
Week to 10 days now. So as soon as that comes back and it is signed, and he will then have to be in a suspended status on council, what does he then, where is he physically then? I mean, is he just not showing up for council meetings? He's going to show up at the next council meeting, he says.
Well, I think under the current state of the law, he would be suspended
contemporaneous with the entry of the order by the court.
And he would not be able to serve up on council, sit on council, do any official acts for the people of Portsmouth as soon as that shows up.
The current status of the law is, as I understand it, would be that he's suspended. So if you're suspended from being able to perform your duties, that's exactly what it means. You're suspended from performing your duties. Now, Dr. Whitaker may be exploring other avenues in which he's going to present himself to council, but I understand the status of the law to be that he would be suspended immediately upon entry of the felony sentencing order, which is yet to be signed by the judge. Then, inasmuch as he has not been sentenced to any period of incarceration, he's not on probation, he is eligible to have his civil rights restored immediately, which means he is eligible to be elected to office.
Let me follow up on that. What do you mean? I mean, he's a convicted felon.
But under Virginia's statutory scheme, you can petition the Secretary of the Commonwealth to have your civil rights restored. So you have a right to be elected to public office, to sit on a jury, to vote. The only thing you can't do is possess a firearm.
How long does that take? What is that process? I mean, that's a long process.
No, it's a very, very quick process. Matter of fact, under Governor McAuliffe, you might recall, there were a number of individuals who were convicted of felonies who then just received a notice in the mail that their civil rights had been restored without even filing a petition. Governor McAuliffe took the position, or former Governor McAuliffe took the position that we shouldn't have to require folks to file a petition when it's an automatic restoration of their civil rights upon completion of all of their sentences and that and when they're off of probation. And so there's an expedited process where you can you file it online. If you go to the website, there's a provision for an expedited process, which is a very quick process in which you submit your name, the information, it's verified by the state, and the order's entered, restoring your civil rights.
So Dr. Whitaker felt like he didn't get a fair trial. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the jury got it wrong, as I argued to the court. I do not believe that the law supported the convictions. The judge appropriately dismissed the 17 counts on the motion to strike. We believe that the judge should have stricken the other 3 counts on the renewed motion to strike, and notwithstanding that the jury was plainly wrong in its finding that the law simply, and the evidence that was presented during the course of the trial, simply did not support beyond a reasonable doubt that Dr. Whitaker committed the 3 offenses of forgery as charged.
Can you just sum up real quick what they got wrong? What were the technical issues, the 3 points that they got wrong?
Well, I think the 3 points they got wrong is it had to be a writing, it had to be a forgery, a document that was signed by Dr. Whitaker with intent to defraud and to the prejudice of another person. Clearly, Kevin Blunt was the person in the 3 counts of the indictment. He agreed to accept the checks. He signed the checks. The check said loan on the front of the checks. He knew the agreement and understanding was he was not going to have to repay any monies to the credit union. He did not have to repay any monies to the credit union. There was nothing ever negative reported in any credit bureau. He was never called upon by the credit union or any other entity to have to pay any monies. In fact, he didn't even know of the existence of the fact that there were these loan documents, if you will, that were outstanding. Further, he said that, and there was no evidence that Dr. Whitaker ever executed any document. There was obviously no handwriting expert or any other person that testified before the trier of fact, the jury or the judge, that Dr. Whitaker executed any document. There was just absolutely no evidence of that. So there wasn't any evidence of the 3 elements that were required, and as such, we believe the jury was plainly wrong in its findings.
Coming up next.
Right here.
So from your understanding of the legal process and the process for restoration of rights, is there really no way to tell at this point if the order will be entered and if he chooses to do the expedited process to get his civil rights restored, there's no way to tell if that will happen before Election Day. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would assume, you know what they say about assumptions, but I would assume that the judge will get the conviction order, the felony sentencing order back quickly, so we should have that, I would say, either later this week or more likely next week. And then it's a question of Dr. Whitaker restoring his civil rights, which, again, is a very quick process. It's really a perfunctory process. You just apply for it, you get it, if you meet the criteria, and he meets all the criteria today. So there'd be no reason to withhold the restoration of his civil rights. Would be contrary to the intent of the law and the process related to civil rights restoration. So, as opposed to the converse being true. So, I would expect that once the felony sentencing order is received on that day, Dr. Whitaker would be in a position to be able to ask for the restoration of his civil rights, and that should happen very quickly thereafter, in advance of election.
My name is Amanda, and I smoked while I was pregnant. This is the view I had of my baby in the NICU. My tip is speak into the opening so your baby can hear you better.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW.
Welcome home. Time goes by, that's for sure, that no one can deny. And we've been apart, so welcome home. Here I am. I was lost, but I'm found, and I turn around. So you're welcome home. Welcome home.
I'm Andre Whitehead, and you would not believe how excited we are to be back in all of Hampton Roads. And of course, we're filming today from the infamous ramp here in Douglas Park, overlooking the highway. Thank you for your support. We want to hear from you. We want to help grow your business, promote your nonprofit, talk about your upcoming event, and even share the word about your ministry. Call us at Whitehead Media Ventures today. Our information is at the bottom of the screen. And thank you so much for watching Conversations with Andre Whitehead, the Business, Health, and Community News Show. We're glad to be back home.
Right here.
So from your understanding of the legal process and the process for restoration of rights, is there really no way to tell at this point if the order will be entered and if he chooses to do the expedited process to get his civil rights restored? There's no way to tell if that will happen before Election Day. Is that correct?
That's correct. I would assume, you know what they say about assumptions, but I would assume that the judge will get the conviction order, the felony sentencing order back quickly, so we should have that, I would say, either later this week or more likely next week. And then it's a question of Dr. Whitaker restoring his civil rights, which, again, is a very quick process. It's really a perfunctory process. You just apply for it, you get it, if you meet the criteria, and he meets all the criteria today. So there'd be no reason to withhold the restoration of his civil rights. Would be contrary to the intent of the law and the process related to civil rights restoration. So, as opposed to the converse being true. So, I would expect that once the felony sentencing order is received on that day, Dr. Whitaker would be in a position to be able to ask for the restoration of his civil rights, and that should happen very quickly thereafter, in advance of Election Day.
What's the law about his being on the ballot? On the ballot. I'm sorry.
I don't.
On the ballot.
I don't.
I mean, there's a deadline to have his name on the ballot if he's a convicted felon and he hasn't gotten it restored.
He's on the ballot. He's on the ballot as of right now. My understanding is because early voting has already started in terms of absentee voting, that he's already on the printed ballot. So Dr. Whitaker is on the printed ballot. It would be a question of essentially removing him or just disregarding the folks that voted for him, which would be a disservice to the public who votes for him and would have had an opportunity to vote for somebody else. So I think that again, I'm not in election law, and there are plenty of lawyers who may be who are very skilled in that area. But if he has his civil rights restored, I don't know what the argument would be that he shouldn't be allowed to remain on the ballot because he's eligible. And remember, the case stays within the breast of the court for 21 days. So the court's order is not final until 21 days after its entry. But he can apply for his civil rights within that period of time.
So is he a convicted felon right now, or is that in 21 days?
Well,
when is he? He is a convicted.
Once the judge signs the order, he's a convicted felon.
Do you find it unusual that the judge left without signing that?
No, I don't know what the judge's schedule was, and of course, clearly he was here from out of town. Sometimes it takes, a little bit for the clerk's office to type up the orders and then get them back to the judge. So it's not really unusual that an order isn't entered necessarily the same day. The court tries to do that, to enter it the same day or within 24 hours or so, the same day or next day. But it's not unusual that it may not be entered immediately.
Dr. Whitaker spoke about what he thought was Sheriff Watson's role in all of this and maybe even starting this ball rolling. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I really don't want to rehash any of that. Dr. Whitaker made the statements that he did. He's a man that's very articulate, and there was a whole lot that started this process through the Commonwealth attorney requesting a special prosecutor and then recusing herself from the case. And then the affiliations related to why that may have happened or not happened in terms of the former Sheriff Watson's position in this. I don't really have any comment on that. And as you know, from the purpose during the course of the trial, there was some attempt to bring that into the trial of the case, and the judge said he was not going to allow any of that into the case, any evidence to be presented relative to political motivations. So I defer to Dr. Whitaker on all of those issues.
Can you speak to the appeal? How will you appeal this verdict?
Well, I think that there are a number of issues, the same issues I raised for the judge today, Mr. Don Scott and I raised for the judge today, are the same issues that'll be relevant for purposes of the appeal of the case. Clearly, the evidence in our position did not support the finding of the court or the jury in terms of the elements of the crime of forgery. And I think that upon review of the record evidence in the case, the actual transcripts, the words spoken by the witnesses, and then the exhibits that were presented, that we'd like to believe that the Court of Appeals will get it right and reverse and dismiss the case.
Any final word for me today?
Well, I think this is a sad day for Portsmouth and for our criminal justice system, because Dr. Whitaker is a good man, and it's my belief that he did not commit a crime, and clearly under the evidence should not have been convicted.
Well, that's the broadcast for today, and we want to thank you for tuning in. We will continue to stay on upcoming developments concerning Dr. Mark Whitaker. Our phone lines are still open. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to call us. The number is on the screen. You can even shoot us an email. Andre Whitehead at whiteheadmediaventures.com, and we thank you so much for tuning in to the broadcast. Also call us if there's anything that we can do to assist you, your business, or your nonprofit, and even your ministry. Contact us at Whitehead Media Ventures today. We'll see you next week.